You can get attention with short form content. Short form content is great at getting attention, but it's hard to have massive, transformative, paradigm shifting, changing impact with short form content.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Reside Platform Podcast. Super stoked to have somebody I've been trying to get on the show for a while, Mr. International a bit, Jason Fladlien. Jason, what's going on, dude?
I'm happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. So in my notes, number one, it's a big privilege to talk Jason. I'm in Jason's mastermind, the Driven Mastermind, which we've done videos at. Lewis did one of those videos, and we talk about Driven in the podcast episode, Jason. So you'd get a kick out of that. And you're also known as the $100 million webinar man.
$250 million now.
$250 million. Is that the first time that you've said that? $250 million?
Dude, the branding needs to be updated. It's several years ago I achieved that. But here's the thing: when you do nine figures, it doesn't really matter at that point. It's what matters is nine figures. So there you go.
Not a lot of people can say that. So for those people on here who don't know you, your background is unique. I think it's awesome. You've been a rapper and a Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
To like the go-to dude for a lot of the digital marketers to help them with their pitches and present and sell their stuff, right?
True. All of the above is absolutely factual, 100%.
Yeah, man. So like, what do you think those old school rapper and monk days, how do you think that like impacted your approach to business, bro?
Yeah, I mean, philosophically. I was meditating. We'll start philosophically and then we'll talk practically. Yeah. Philosophically, I was meditating 2 to 4 hours a day, which allowed me to really be able to quiet the mind and focus and dial in. So I got really good at that. So then I can template that and apply that to anything that I wanted to master. So being able to have a strong meditative background is a superpower in business. Also, like, it gave me purpose. So as a monk, I was connected spiritually to a bigger purpose. Before that, like, life was chaotic. I was depressed. Sure. I had panic attacks 2, 3, 4 times a day. I had agoraphobia. I was afraid to leave the house. Open spaces scared me. So it's the opposite of claustrophobia. And I was just lost. I was focused on my problems. That was it. They were too big to focus on anything else. When I got connected spiritually, I was focusing on service, of being something beyond myself. And that motivated me to put myself into my music first. So I had this like burning desire. I was very driven to try to make an impact and to try to use this blessing, which is the human experience, to do something with it. Sure. And then on a practical level, the music was not working. I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? But I don't think there was a huge market in a small town of Iowa where I came from for the stuff that I was doing. Sure. Obviously, right?
Sure.
We don't know at the time, So, but I was struggling with the music, and I said, how do I do better at the music? Let me figure that out. And then that led me into studying business, which led me into studying marketing. And then I started doing more marketing and less music. And 18 years later, here I am.
Yeah. Dude, I did some rap shows myself. I don't think we've ever talked about that.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
There was one year I decided that playing the guitar was too hard. So I'm going to rap instead. I did a couple shows. I said, I'm going to stick to the guitar. It's like a shield, right? It's like a shield where I have something that's protecting me from the audience. So let's go to webinars, dude, and just presentations in general, because that's what you're known for. And honestly, you've given me some of the best techniques on webinars I've ever got. You are the best techniques on webinars I have ever got.
There you go.
How many people, first of all, have told you that?
Probably more than, I mean, if you know me and you put me against the other webinar trainers, I probably have the highest percentage. So I may not have sold the most trainings on how to do webinars, but I've certainly impacted the most people. My techniques are utilized across billions and billions of dollars of commerce these days.
Yes.
So I am a very good doer of webinars. People consider me the best. And I'm also a very good teacher of webinars. So usually in any business, you're either good at doing it or you're good at teaching it. It's hard to
Sure.
be both. And I've been fortunately very blessed that I spend more time trying to teach other people how to do webinars than getting better at webinars myself at this point. I should just hunker down and just continue to get better myself and not even try to teach this to others. But I have a teacher's heart. I
Yeah, you
naturally
do.
like to help and train and coach,
And you're
teach.
good at it. You're
And I'm
really
good
great
at it,
at it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I have probably, you've either used my techniques because you know who I was, or you used my techniques and you didn't know who I was because somebody else taught you something that they learned from me. Which is why I'm now out here, Suneet, because I wasn't on social media. I wasn't really pushing
I
out
know.
there. I was working with a lot of clients, and I had my reputation was so strong, people found me. But now I'm going to the market because I got tired of people coming up to me saying, "Oh, I learned so and so from X," and then I later on discovered that came from you. And then once I learned it directly
Yeah.
from you, I had a much better result. And so I felt like an obligation.
Yes.
So now I'm out here. So I'm here to spit some game to help some people with this.
Yeah, dude. And do you know how many people I send to your friggin' YouTube and to your Instagram?
I don't know how many, but I'm grateful every single time.
Dude, a lot. Because like I was talking, here's a good example. You know John, my business partner, right? Like
Yeah.
John's son is doing a fitness thing and is really wanting to learn how to better present. And I sent him to your stuff. He texted me the other day. He's all, I've been watching it. Give me more info. This dude's fire. So good. Good.
Nice.
Shout out. So why webinars though?
It's one of the best ways to do a mass market style promotion online. It is hard to beat in terms of its persuasive capabilities. It's at the intersection of efficient and effective. So most marketing
Yes.
is either efficient or it's effective, but it's not both. So let me explain. Effective would be like one-to-one selling. Get on the phone
Sure.
or in person is even more effective. In person, nose to nose, toes to toes. What are you trying to achieve and what gets in the way of that? And then you listen for 30 minutes. And then when you're done, you help them understand that your solution doesn't have the issues that stopped them in the past and can provide the things that they specifically want. And you can contextualize it to that individual prospect one at a time. Hyper effective, woefully inefficient because you can only talk to one person at a time, right? On the other side of the spectrum is you can create like a sales letter or even a video sales letter, and it's a
Sure.
generic message, and it's done and it's recorded. And that is very efficient because it can reach everybody all at once, and a million people can watch it just as easily as one person from a fulfillment standpoint. But it is not uniquely tailored specifically to any individual person watching the video. So you ultimately want the best of both. And so what's
Yes.
great about webinars, especially live webinars, is I can do individual selling in mass simultaneously. I can both educate and sell in one sitting. Typically, marketing is one or the other. Either we educate today and sell tomorrow, or we don't
Yeah.
educate at all. We annoy and sell today, and then hopefully we make up with it for the product. So this is really exciting to me because I can have the ability to personalize. I can do that live. Nothing beats live, by the way. The trade-off
Yeah.
is it takes your time, but the benefit is you're in this unique space and time that's unfolding in real time with an audience. And I'm still selling people one-to-one, but I'm selling this guy in front of thousands of other people at the same time. And sometimes when I'm
Mhm.
selling to him, she buys. Or when I sell to him and her, then this person over here needed both of those answers for them to buy. And that is super efficient and super effective. And also, here's another important lesson too, is I play to my strengths, and everybody should play to their strengths. So I like teaching, and at the fundamental heart of a webinar is teach. Selling is optional, but transformation is
Mm.
necessary when I create these, right? I don't want you to leave the same as you showed up. I want you to be unable to have the same problems you had prior to the webinar. So I want to fundamentally have an impact on you that makes you better as a result of the webinar. And if you buy, you buy. And if you don't, you don't. But ultimately, objective number one is an improvement in quality of each person that attends. So that at the heart of it, that motivates me and I'm good at it. I'm naturally
Sure.
excited to use it. So we'll lean into your advantage. And secondly, I just love to sell, which is why I don't like to do one-on-one, because I don't get to sell to as many people doing it one-on-one. I'm good in front of an audience. I feel energized in front of an audience. And so all of these things lend themselves naturally to predisposed advantages that I already have. And in most spaces where you have a personality, or where there's
Yeah.
a brand, or if there's a connection between the person and the audience, not just the product, then the webinar helps extend that personal connection. And so this is why you see at the heart of every big launch that happens is some sort of event. Now, you could call it a webinar, you could call it a challenge, you could call it a masterclass, you could call it a live stream, you call whatever the hell you want to call it. But essentially, it's an orchestrated presentation that is designed to help somebody make a buying decision at the end of it. And to me,
Yeah.
that's all of that's a webinar. We can stack 4 webinars in a row in 4 days and call it a challenge.
Sure.
We can do one. It's a presentation done to transform people and then to sell the right people to the product that is more costly for them not to buy.
Yes. Now, is every presentation, do we want to sell in every presentation, Jason?
Yes.
I
I want
do.
to sell
I
in
do.
every
And I have a big
presentation.
problem because
Yeah.
I want to almost hard. I just want to go for the close at the end of
Yeah,
everything.
me too. So if you're doing
Okay.
one-off webinars, then essentially that's exactly what you do. If you're doing multi-day events, then traditionally, maybe day one, we don't sell a product, we sell an idea. We always sell something on a webinar, but then we set it up to sell it on day 2, or maybe we sell it on day 3, whatever strategically makes the most sense. But in most instances, and I'll give you a real big game changer for me, Suneet, that I learned many, many years ago when I first started doing webinars. I had this blog. So we're talking like 2010. And I would send people to comment on a blog post that I would write. And I would get like
Sure.
5 comments, 10 comments. Then I would launch a new product. Then I wouldn't even use a webinar necessarily back then. It would maybe a $17 product or $27 product, short sales letter. Hey, I just created this new product. If you buy it in the next 40 hours, you get it at half off. And I would sell more than 5 or 10 units of that product. So I discovered the insight was very interesting. It was easier to sell products than it was to get blog comments. And even today, like I post stuff on Facebook constantly. You see it, right? I'm trying to do something every single day. It's a good day if I get 50 or 60 comments. It's a good day if I get 200, 300 likes. And you've seen the numbers. Sometimes I'm hitting 300 likes. When I launch
You
a
are
product,
sometimes, yeah.
I sell more than 300 units when I launch a product, right?
I never thought of it like that, dude. That's so funny.
So people would rather buy than be entertained. They would rather buy than be educated. They would rather buy than not buy if it's the right thing to buy and it's targeted to the right person, because they don't even want to buy. They want to get a transformation. They want to get a transformation. And they're more likely to get it with a paid product than they are with a free blog post or with a Facebook thing or a YouTube thing or what have you, right? So fundamentally, you are doing an audience no favors if you are not creating the very best combination of education and sales pitch into some sort of online vehicle, and then using all the senses. So the visual, the auditorial, the interactivity, right?
Yes. Yeah, dude. That's so good. All of it. It's what you're talking about, the transformation part of what you want people to get when they attend anything that you do. I want to let you know that I have my Notion file of Jason Fladlien notes, and that's the first thing in there. So every time I do a presentation, I go look at that and say, okay, what would Jason do? So everyone listening, I want you to pay close attention, right? I actually got some of that out of the book, One to Many, which
Hell yeah.
I think everyone out there should get a copy of. Hopefully, lots of sales. It's a damn good book, dude.
It is. It's too good.
It's too good.
It's cost me money because, we built it on the back of a course that we used to sell for $1,500. And the book is too good that people don't even buy the course anymore. So it wasn't very strategic for me from a monetary standpoint, but I don't care. It's came back to me in other ways because I've had now billion-dollar companies reach out to me as a result of reading that book and then, make deals with them. So I'm doing okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you think inside of real estate, since we have a big real estate audience of like the power of like personal branding, and especially in this presentation type stuff, right? Because you're like marketer who's marketed for other brands, who's marketed for other stuff, and you know how realtors are such into the personal brand part.
Yeah, anybody who's doing personal branding should 100% utilize webinars. And just to be clear, in service-based businesses, oftentimes the call to action in a webinar isn't go here and buy this product. It's go here and book this call. So if you're working hands-on with clientele or strategic partners, the best deal tension to have is to have 50 potential them and only one of you. Choice on the supply demand curve is everything. So if I can do a webinar and produce a lot of potential leads and then hand select the ones that are the easiest to deal with, that have the highest reward with the least amount of pain in the ass, that's really intelligent business. And so webinars position you as the ultimate authority, and the audience sees the social proof and the scarcity based upon the calendar that you fill out. And so you can screen, you can sift, you can sort, and you can be more efficient if you're in a service-based business, which is a lot of real estate is service-based. Like if we're talking agents, right? And we're talking selling homes or selling even commercial property. Now, at the same time, too, real estate agents can provide products and education and all kinds of other stuff and expand their brand and their personal impact doing that, of course, right? But even if we just take it from a service perspective, here's the thing I always say to clients, Suneet, is like, you at your very best in 45 minutes, where can I find that? And for 99% of professionals, the answer is nowhere. So you've never said, this is what I say to them. So you've never sat down and spent whatever amount of time it takes to capture the very best version of you doing the very best of what you do and putting it into one 45 to 60-minute presentation. That doesn't exist. And I'm like, no, it doesn't exist. Is that a good strategy to not have the very best version of you that is orchestrated out, that shows you and what you can do with the biggest impact? See, everybody will write tweets and they will do these small bite-sized content pieces, but it's hard to make a massive impact with short-form content. You just, you can't do it, okay? You can get attention with short-form content. Short-form content is great at getting attention, but it's hard to have massive, transformative, paradigm-shifting, changing impact with short-form content. Now, here's the flip side of it, okay? So I just got back from Dubai. Good place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there, right? But I was with a client who we reached 500,000+ people on this launch that we did.
500,000?
Yeah, 500,000, right? He would do the presentation, then I would come in and do the closing and the sales pitching. It was an interesting experience. So we projected in the launch going in the numbers. We're like, if we can close 1.5% of people that we reach on 500,000, right? Then that means whatever that means. I don't have the notes in front of me, but let's just do that. I'll do the math right here. Times 0.015. That's 7,500 buyers, right?
Okay.
Now, if the average buyer is worth $1,500, which they were worth more when you include the upsells and downsells, but if we can get $1,500 on average per buyer, that's $11.25 million. It's an $11 million launch, right? 7,500 people out of 500,000. So here's the mistake a lot of people make, Suneet, is they think they're doing webinars for everybody. The reality is we're doing the webinars for the 1.5% of people who are going to buy, not the 98.5% of people who are not going to buy.
So good.
We go deeper and longer and more thorough for that few percent of the market that spends a majority of its money. And this is a thing that nobody gets. And this is why I'm out here trying to help people understand this, right? We don't do it for the people who aren't willing to go deeper. We go for the people who are looking for depth and aren't getting it, because those are the ones that are going to spend the most amount of money and have the biggest impact on. But this is why people are resistant and not creating these long form pieces of content, because they don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, because it is hard. It is hard to put together the best 45 to 60-minute version of you that you can publish on the internet, but you only have to do it once. And then you have, I call it the I have a dream speech, right? Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream. Legendary speech. We need to have the I have a dream speech for every brand, what they stand for, what they're willing to do on behalf of their constituents, something that moves the heart as well as the head, right? We need that. Every brand should have that. And then, of course, why not attach an offer at the end of it? I mean, Even if you didn't know, it'd still be impactful to have. So that's what I do when I think of it. And I don't care what industry it's in, but any personal brand related industry should have that. And if you don't have that, you are playing the game without a full deck.
Yeah, man. Looks like I have homework for next week, Jason. Damn it. Because as you're saying it, I got good shit out there, but do I have all of that? That I have a dream? No. So I have a question on something that you just said, and I think I know the answer, but I want to talk about it for the listeners and viewers. Because your webinars, you're known to go longer than average. Would that be safe to say?
Yes, much longer.
Yes, much long. Like, what's the average length of one of your webinars you do want to launch?
I mean, ideally 4 hours.
Right.
We don't always go that long because the audience isn't always big enough. But we'll go 6 hours if it makes sense. Yeah, I say this is going to sound funny. Unfortunately, for this last launch that I was doing, we weren't able to go as long as I would like. Now, let me explain the conditions of why. So we would do these live streams on YouTube. Live streams would start at 9 p.m. Dubai time, so it's already late. So that makes it harder for us to go longer. So that's the first strike against us. Second strike is we would do a VIP. So for this event, we sold VIPs, so they would have a private 1-hour conversation with us before we did the live event, which, by the way, is super intelligent because they feel special. They get extra love. They've already spent money with you. So if people spend a small amount of money with you, then they're more likely to spend a large amount of money with you.
Sure.
People always ask me, how do I sell to cold audiences? And I say the best way to sell to a cold audience is to make them warm. And they say, how do I make them warm? And I say, give them to give you any amount of money. And then they go from cold to warm just like that. They go hot for a short period of time, at least. So we would start at 8 p.m. We do an hour training with the VIPs. Then
Straight training.
Just, Q&A, training, insights, excitement, state management, that kind of stuff.
State management, good.
We can get back to that one in a little bit. Emotional state management. That's an advanced technique, but we'll break it down, right? So we would go 8 to 9 there. Then my client would go from 9 to 9:30. So now we're 2.5 hours in from when we started, including the VIPs. Then I would tag in, and then I would typically go 2 to 3 more hours. So this is a total of 5.5 hours. And then we would end the stream, and my heart would break a little bit because there would be 7,000 people on, 14,000 people on, 11,000 people on, right? And I'm like, I know if we stuck in there with them longer, we would have more impact and we would make more sales. But we're talking 1 in the freaking morning now, and I'm already jet lagged, and we have to do this 5 days in a row. So we were only on average doing 4 to 5 hours a day streaming. If we were more strategic, I would have had somebody else there with me presenting that I could tag in so I could take a break, and we would keep cycling in and out. We were also building
dude,
in real time.
Cycle in and out.
Oh, hell
you done that?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So when we do them
bro.
virtually, so I was on site in Dubai, but typically when I run my webinars, my business partner, he's on Zoom, I'm on Zoom. He will come in and do 20% of the closing, and I'll do 80, so I can keep taking breaks and recharging and then coming back. And then if we have an affiliate, because oftentimes we do partnerships where a third party will host the webinar, invite their audience, then we have 3 people. So then I'll come in, then Will will come in, then the host will come in, then I'll come back in, then Will will come in, and the host will come back in. And so generally the rule of thumb is we go until either we run out of energy or they run out of question. Yeah. And again, because we optimize for the few who spend most of the money, not for the many who spend a little amount of the money.
Yeah, dude. I just recently, I want to share this with you. I was about to text you, and I just did a presentation 3 hours straight with like 1 10-minute break. It was something else. And that's the thing, right? So I did it. I did have a selling opportunity that I converted on. And then, the travel is becoming a challenge on that. So I'm going to try and do those things virtually, right? And still have the same amount of impact. What advice would you have for me on that, bro?
Learn in the field is how I always say it, right? So get in front of an audience, observe what happens, and then adjust. So I call this attempt, observe, adjust. So how fast can we switch to virtual, and how quick can we get our reps in? And then as we're getting our reps in, we do these postmortems. So we do the webinar, When it's over with, we look at it, we say, what went right? What didn't go as planned? And what can we learn to invest in the next webinar? And then we invest
Yes.
it into the next webinar and we make a small improvement. And then we repeat that a couple hundred times. And pretty soon we're the best in the whole entire industry. We're making money along the way and we're impacting people, but it's so much is done to the webinar that is just overthinking. Because if you're in front of an audience and you're sincere and you're attempting to better them, they will be very forgivable of mistakes that you make, and they will be very open to continuing to listen to you. And you only need to say the right thing to them one time and connect to them one time to get them to buy. As long as they're showing up, you can continue to try a multitude of different things. And so the idea here is to how quickly can we go from the concept that you're talking about to a reality where that's happened that we could look back on and then analyze. That's the most important factor. Before you get good, just get going.
How much focus should be spent on like audience drop off in that process?
Minimal, right? It's who leaves isn't as important as who stays.
Sure.
So at first we say, who cares if they leave? Let's serve who stays and let's see how well we do. Now, if nobody buys, then we got a problem.
Sure.
So if we have more people that stay and don't buy, that doesn't solve our problem. That actually makes our problem worse. So, but if a bunch of people buy and we say, okay, we've nailed that portion of it. So now how do we get more people to show up and stay longer? But oftentimes, drop off rate for most people starting off. Now, for major clients that I work with, where every little percent can mean millions of dollars, it's a whole different story. But when you're just getting started, drop-off rate is a hard data point to quantify its impact. Here's what I mean by that. Because again, if I'm converting at 5% on a webinar, like say I'm selling $1,000 product. And
what's my conversion goal on average for low ticket and high ticket?
It depends. There's so many factors, but I'm just going to give you a number right now. It's like, say we're selling $1,000 product and our goal is to convert 5% of the people that show up, right?
Sure.
Whether those other 95% stay or leave on minute 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, or 40, it doesn't really matter. What matters is, can we get the 5% to stay that are most likely to buy? So oftentimes the things that you will do to increase stick rate will decrease conversion rate. Like this is tricky stuff. So at first we optimize for those who show up and stay, and we don't for those who are leaving. Otherwise, what you do is you water down the message to get more people to stay longer, but it has less teeth. So we get the sales first, and then we improve stick rate, show rate, those other things as well. You can do fancy techniques like open loops, which I'm a huge fan of, and I teach very much.
Yes, and I love your teaching on it too. Yep.
You can do commitment frames, which you absolutely should. All of those things are good technique, but they're advanced. But first, do you have a message that if the right person heard it would be electrifying to them? If you do, then we're good. Let's start there. And then in due time, when we become unconsciously competent at that, then we can circle back around and try to optimize for the rest. But we can't be good at everything immediately. So we have to pick and choose what we want to be good for initially. And then when we become good at that, then we can become better at other things too.
What is the best format for a novice to create their presentation with?
The one that will get it done the fastest and in front of the audience quickest, right? So if you say, hey, listen, I hate slides. I'm really good speaking straight to camera. Go. Let's do that.
Sure.
Let's start there, right? If you're somebody who's like, I don't want to be on camera at all and I hate a live audience, then we make it an automated webinar, right?
Sure.
We can talk objective best, but if you're not using it, then it doesn't matter if it's objectively the best or not. We want subjective best because any webinar is better than no webinar. So we start with how do we get it online and see what happens. And then once we get it online, we now know things we could never know before because we have the reflective perspective. And that's great. Now we can get insight that we couldn't get otherwise. And then we can adjust it and improve it and optimize for it. My favorite webinars for clients just getting started, Suneet, are this one. Hey, listen, I'm trying this new media. I've never done it before. It's called a webinar. I have no idea if it'll work or not. I'll probably fail miserably, but on the off chance, maybe I can possibly perhaps change your life when it comes to X, Y, and Z. So will you kindly show up just so I have an audience to present this on? Because I'm freaking scared out of my mind, but I feel like if I get it right, it could be huge for you. So do you want to come and check it out? And just be as open and transparent as possible. And if you're selling product, you say, and also I'm going to try to sell you something. I have no idea if that's going to work, right? I could totally strike out, but I'm going to try because I think if you're the right person, this is going to be super helpful for you. So kindly indulge me, show up to this webinar, get your popcorn, and we'll see what the heck happens, right?
That's some good copy. Okay, good. What about structure? Like, how should I set it up?
Yeah.
When I do a presentation.
Intro, content, transition, close or offer. Intro, content, transition, offer. I'm working on a new product right now, partnering with Onyx and Gall, and we're launching this thing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. They're going to spend, he's going to be the paid, the advertising side. I'm going to be the fulfillment side. So cool. I literally just optimized even further the structure yesterday. So I've got it down to this. I'm trying to find it right now. Here it is. Okay. So intro, typically 5 to 15 minutes. Okay. In the introduction, this is what I suggest clients do: hook, pain, gain, and position. So hook is
pain, gain, position.
Yep. I'll break it all down. So hook is like, how do we get immediate favorable attention related to your topic and related to you that in and of itself makes somebody feel emotionally grateful and excited to be on the webinar, and also sets them up later to be most receptive to the offer. So that's a hook. Pain, I go to pain next because people show up to webinars to solve problems more than anything. So they're in a pain state. So the best thing you can do is to gain rapport with an audience, and that is you meet them where they're at. So you address the problems that get in the way of their desired outcome. Then you talk about the gain. And then once these problems are removed, here are the things that they could look forward to. And then finally, you position yourself, why you are uniquely qualified to help them reach that outcome, and why specifically the vehicle that you're going to show them today that's going to give them the best advantage. So that's that's the introduction section. Then the content section is, you want to create a content section that has a paradigm shift. So a paradigm shift is once they hear it right, like presented properly in the right context, they say, oh my God, this changes everything. I can never go back to the way I was before. I'm broken fundamentally from my excuses. I can no longer live with them. So therefore, I must either accept that I'm not serious and not buy at the end, or I have to accept that I am serious and then I will buy at the end. Like subtextually, that's what the paradigm shift does. So I'll give you a couple examples, right?
Yeah.
Like in the real estate space.
Sure.
Let's say that there's a subsegment of an audience that thinks because their credit score is so miserable that they'll never get approved for a loan no matter what. And so they think that they are limited and that they can't even buy a house. And then you can get on there and do a training that shows them how this is actually not a constraint, and that there's a whole opportunity for them that they didn't even know exists through some sort of creative way of financing that is not known to many people. So this one big excuse, constraint that has held them back before, is no longer valid. So then they have to decide, do I really want to buy a house, or am I not serious about it? So that's a paradigm. Another paradigm could be, there are certain, and I can't remember because I've worked with some real estate people in the past, but it's been a while. Like there are certain different loan programs, like, how military has really favorable ways for them to get homes. There's other programs like that. So like if you go to a market and you educate them on a program for buying a home that they didn't know existed, it's a whole paradigm shift. Wow, I have this advantage in my back pocket that I'm not using. Now that I know I can use it, should I use it or should I squander it, right? So these are examples of paradigms. Like AI in any field right now is a paradigm shift. These people are doing it the old-fashioned way. Here's a disruptive technology. If you know how to use this technology, then oh my God, what an advantage you have. And right now, nobody's using it. So if you're the first to get in, oh God, it's going to be good for you. So that's like a paradigm.
Buddy.
Yep. So
we use that one.
I know you do. I'm very happy that you do, right? So a paradigm shift in my market for certain markets that I reach is like the webinar, right? Where's the very best 60 minutes of you online that I can watch? Oh, there isn't one? Huh. Are we sure that's a good idea or not? Now, what if there could be one and it could be easy, quick, and simple, and you could snap it together piece by piece, almost copying and pasting it with minimum effort on your part to get an amazing result? That's a paradigm, right? So then there are the mechanism. So there's this concept of the 80-20 rule. Few inputs get a majority of outputs, right?
Sure.
So, a few customers spend a majority of money. A few criminals commit most of the crimes. A few drivers
Yeah.
make most of the wrecks, right? A few of us pay most of the taxes.
Yeah.
A few real estate agents sell most of the homes, and many real estate agents don't even sell more than 3 homes a year, right? So we are looking at the 80-20 rule. What are the few things required in order to get the paradigm? Like what
Yes.
are typically it's 2 to 4. What are the 2 to 4 things that matter most when it comes to achieving this paradigm? So we identify those in the content, and then we set them up. And you just saw in Driven, I did a whole training on
Hell
setup.
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah,
That was
hell yeah.
fire, dude. I'd look at those notes all the time. I'd look at your Notion page. That
Oh,
shit was fire.
so here's a psychological principle that most people aren't aware of. It's like you're teaching an unknown thing typically on a webinar. So nobody has a frame of reference to an unknown thing. So we bridge that gap by linking it to a thing that they already know. And then when we show them the unknown thing that they have no experience with, now they can understand it. They have an emotional connection to it, and they can see themselves using it. So, I would teach, I've done very well in the Amazon space, teaching people how to sell products on Amazon.
Okay.
And one of the models we teach is wholesaling, where you approach brands or their representatives and you say, hey, I would like to be a reseller of your product on Amazon. How do we make that happen? Now, here's the interesting thing. So that's kind of the paradigm. The paradigm is you can be a reseller of these major products on Amazon, and just by listing these products on Amazon, you can make some decent money. That's the paradigm. It's like this aha moment. Now, one of the mechanisms is there's 2 essential mechanisms. One is you have to know which products to be a reseller of. And 2 is you have to know how to approach the brands to become a reseller. That's it. I just have to show them those 2 things to satisfy that paradigm. Now, if I go straight in raw and be like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to reach out to these manufacturers or these brands or the representatives, and you're going to approach them and you're going to say XYZ 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to follow this process. What'll happen is people will get scared out of their mind. The average person. Because they're like, oh my God, I'm brand new. Why would a brand owner listen to me? Oh my God, what if I look like an idiot when I approach them? And they get very scared. So they don't buy into it emotionally, even though logically they can understand it and follow it, right? So we set it up. So the way I set it up here is I said, hey, listen, when you were younger, your parents gave you a piece of advice was good, but they didn't put an expiration date on it. And they said, don't talk to strangers. And that was good when you were growing up. But here you are, a full grown adult, and you're still afraid to talk to strangers, which is a problem because how are you going to make new friends? And if you're single, how are you going to find the love of your life? And how are you going to have connections if you are afraid to talk to strangers? And think of all the beautiful people in your life who are now close to you who are at one point in time a stranger. So that's the setup. So I'm going to ask you to talk to strangers. Now I'm going to give you the scripts. I'm going to show you how you can talk to them in the way that's as easy as possible for you. We're going to give you multiple options, and then you can pick the one that you're most comfortable with. How does that sound? I say, great. Now you go in and explain how to contact the brands. But first you get the buy-in, and you do that
through the setup.
Yeah.
You get the buy-in from the setup.
Yeah, you get the buy-in. So now they're in a state of mind that says, yes, please show me this awesome thing that you're about to show me. Whereas most people, they just show them the thing. But that's this. Remember earlier when I said state management? This is the ultimate state management. I get somebody in a state that says, please show me the thing. And then I simply say, okay, I'm glad you asked. Here's the thing. Versus me saying, let me show you the thing. One of them hits more than the other, right? And then we get commitments. So at the end of each mechanism, we get them, now that you know this, are you committed to going forward and actually using this in your life to create change and impact or whatever the case may be? That's just an example of a commitment, right? So it's not enough to show somebody how to do something. More important is to get them to commit to you that they will actually do the thing. And that's the content portion. That's typically 45 to 60 minutes, depending on subject matter, depending upon, your call to action, whether you're selling a product or not at the end. If you're selling a product, you typically have to go longer in the intro and content. And then if the more expensive the product, the longer you typically have to set the stage. If you're booking calls, it can be shorter. It could be intro 5, content 45. So it's around that range, right? And then we go into the transition. What I do in the transition is I first recap all the awesomeness that I covered in the webinar. So it can be as simple as, so far today on this webinar, you discovered this thing, and then you also learned this thing. And then wasn't it awesome when you saw this thing? And what about this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing? Because mentally, people don't remember most of the stuff they hear after hearing it. they forget it at a conscious level. Now,
Yeah.
unconsciously, they still have it imprinted on them and it will affect their behavior, but they have hard time recalling what they just heard. So recapping it allows them to run back and re-experience in 60 seconds, essentially what you spent 60 minutes talking about. Um,
Okay.
and now they're like, whoa, that was really awesome. Whereas if you don't do that, they will forget how awesome this thing was. So you remind them and you put them in a state of gratitude. And they say, well, that was a lot. And then you tie down with a series of agreements how valuable the webinar was for. So did you learn something today that you didn't know before? Yes. Did you get excited to see how tomorrow can be better than today? Yes. What are some of the first things you're going to use? Is it going to be this or is it going to be this? Or is it going to be both of them? Are you happy with the time that we spent together today? Is the future now brighter than it was before we got together? Stuff like that, right? Now you can make it more specific, more personable, more related to the context and the content, but we get them in a series of yes questions.
Yes.
Because, the big yes is buy my product. Yes, here's my money. So instead of going from cold to a big yes, we go from cold to smaller yeses and then to the big yes. And then we do a juxtaposition. Essentially, a two choices is my favorite way to end the transition. I say, now, there's two ways we can go from here. One is you can go on your own, and I can hope and pray that just with the information we discussed today, that you'll go out there and make a success for it. And if that was your only option, it'd be a worthy one to pursue. But what if there was another option? What if we could work together? What if I could give you all my resources? What if I could support you? What if I could take an active role in your outcome? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And that's exactly what I decided to do. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you, insert product name here, or whatever the program is. So when you sell something, people only look at the downside of it. So you put something in front of somebody and they analyze only what they see. They do not analyze the invisible. So you say, here's this thing, here's the money that it's going to cost, and they only focus on what it costs to buy the product. They don't see the invisible, which is what it costs to keep the problem. So we remind them of that. The cost of going alone. They save the money, right? But they're alone. The cost of going alone is they have to create their own resources instead of leveraging the resources that we've created for them, right?
Sure.
So we are giving them a better decision-making criteria. Do I want the cost of doing this without the product, or do I want to incur the cost of the product, which is more expensive? That's essentially the frame that I build. And for most, for right fit prospects, it's always more expensive to not buy the product. And so this helps them understand that in the transition. And then we go to the offer. Offer is essentially introduce the product, explain what it is, what it does, why it's awesome, how it's delivered. That generally do that in 2 to 3 minutes. Don't spend too much time on that. And then go into the price. We anchor to a high price. You say, hey, listen, I've taught this before and it's been worth this much to this person. It's been worth this much to this other person and this person. And every day we sell it on the website for X. Since you've been here on the webinar with me, I'll give you a special deal. You can get it for just Y when you go to example.com/S and get signed up right now, right? Price. We started with a high anchor and then a reason why it would be worth it at that price. We drop it again, and then give the special deal. Now, if it's a call to action, we don't have to do price where we want to book a call. Instead, we still increase the value.
How about offer stack? Is that what you mean by increasing the value too?
No,
or?
I simply mean it's like, because we're selling the call and then on the call, we're going to sell something. So we still sell the outcome of that on the webinar. In non-financial markets, because people always say, well, Jason, this is easy. If you're in real estate and you're teaching a real estate agent, hey, if this only allowed you to sell 2 more homes in the next year, how much more commission would you make, right?
Yeah.
That's why this is an incredible deal for a number that's significantly less in an investment than the commission that they'll make as a result of it, right? You could still set that up and you could say it's only going to cost you a phone call to find out. If it makes sense for us to work together, then I'll show you how we can work together. If it doesn't make sense for us to work together, I will not under any circumstance allow you to give me money.
Right.
So either way, you're building value. Now, typically what I'll do is after revealing the price, then I'll add bonuses. And when you sign up today, I have some extra special exclusive free things for you. Here's the first thing. And then you show what that is. Then the second, then the third, then the fourth, and then the fifth, or whatever.
Dude, your stuff on bonuses from Product E-Class is the best, dude. I love that shit. I love that bonus chapter.
The biggest impact I've probably made in this space is everybody before me, Suneet, talked about a formula that says, here's everything you get, and now here's the price. And the problem with that is it ends on price. The way I do it is different. Here's the core thing you get. Here's the price for it. Now here's everything else you get. And then I end on value. And that's the difference. I could teach for hours just on bonuses alone. And I think in most offers, the bonus is the best thing you could focus on to get the best conversion on your webinar is the bonuses. So
any sales situation, not just the webinars, it's the total bonuses. Absolutely.
I mean, the highest level, the risk reversal is going to have the biggest impact on your offer, but that's a lot more difficult to get good at.
Sure.
Bonuses are the easiest thing for most people to learn and implement and get significantly better results than they're currently getting. And you're right, it psychologically changes every offer you make in every media once you understand how to do bonuses. And man, I know a whole bunch of tricks on bonuses, but the most important part of it is what they get for free, they value more than what they pay for because they're already linking the cost with this thing. But then the psychological impression of, I get this for free, I get this for free, I get this for free. It's like, oh my God, what an incredible deal. That's an easy way for them to understand value. And then we deal with risk, and then we introduce scarcity. Scarcity is generally, hey, I'm doing this webinar, so it's only a special deal for those of you who have watched this webinar. It expires at this time, and then the price goes up, this thing goes away, and or something else happens that they miss out on. And then the risk is either mitigate that with a guarantee, if that makes sense, or you address the risk, which is, here are the things that you are concerned about that are stopping you from saying yes today. Let's have a conversation about those things. And then you just work through those. And that's, by the way, on my webinars that take the longest, that's where we spend a majority of time on, is the risk issue. Call to action is generally dropped between 45 and 70 minutes on the webinar. And the slides we run out at about 75, 80 minutes into the webinar. And then we spend the next 2 or 3 hours addressing risks, perceived and real. And most of them are perceived, and then helping people make a decision if that risk is worth them not buying, or if it's really actually not a significant risk and it's riskier not to buy. And that's where we spend most of our time on our webinars.
Dude, I love all that. Real quick, it makes me think what you just said about using more slides and placing testimonials. I've been coming to everything, Jason, with an obscene amount of slides, bro. Obscene.
Me too. Yeah.
Obscene. Oh, I got it from you. Yeah.
True.
How do I use stories in my presentation, dude?
I normally don't use them in most areas other than in a couple places.
Damn it.
You probably should. Okay.
Okay. I should.
One of the reasons I don't use stories is because everybody else does in my space. So it allows me to stand out. I will use stories when I position myself. Sometimes I will use a story in a transition sometimes. Like I do this one in Product E class where it's like, when I got started, my living room was my bedroom, was my office. I couldn't fit a desk in the bedroom in there. So I slept on the floor and worked at the desk. And what changed my life is when my mentor, and that kind of thing, right? So there's a micro story. I use a lot of micro stories. I use stories most often in the risk reversal section of the webinar where we're dealing with the objections, because then I'm mixing in different ways of handling objections, because there's a variety of ways that you can address an objection. And so stories are one of the most powerful ways to address an objection. Sometimes you can set the paradigm up with a story where you can say, here's how I discovered this paradigm. I mean, don't use the word paradigm. That's a jargony word to the audience, but essentially say, hey, listen, I was, minding my business one day where I stumbled backwards into this thing that completely changed my life. And you can tell that story. Sometimes they're really good for setups too. So I generally will use these what I call micro stories, 60-second stories.
Okay. Micro stories. Got it.
Yeah. Because otherwise, unless you're really good at telling stories, it's hard to tell a story, and the average person struggles with it.
Good. Dude, we could go for so long. I know you got to stop. I got to stop. Bro, you brought it today. And for everyone who's going to listen to this and watch it and want to learn more about the GOAT, the webinar GOAT, Jason Fladlien, where should they go?
Well, they should get this book on Amazon. So
they should.
One to many. Yes. It's like $9 on Kindle, $20.
Go and get it.
Yeah,
Go and get it. Yes.
Yeah, that's more of a manual than a book. It's a $5,000 training disguised as a book. And then YouTube, I'm now trying the best I can to get started on YouTube. And so if you can follow me on YouTube, it's not the highest production value, but damn, I'm dropping game on there, as Suneet can attest to. So
100%.
yeah,
I would think is the most valuable YouTube channel that I go to.
hell
100%.
yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, dude, I guess I'll see you like in 2 months if I don't talk to you like next week. So
Awesome,
thank you
man.
so much for being a guest on the show. Really appreciate the time. Everybody listening and watching, this was a fire episode. Listen to it again. I'm going to. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Reside Platform Podcast. Thank you.